For those of us here in Sri Lanka, the month of April just feels different. I mean, in the best way possible. It's that time of the year when both Sinhalese and Tamil communities come together to celebrate the New Year. No matter where you go in the country, you can feel the festive energy in the air. It's one of the most important and heartwarming celebrations that we have here in Sri Lanka. This New Year actually has its roots in ancient ways of tracking time based on the movements of the sun. Just like how civilizations like the Mayans used the sun to mark seasons, our New Year also follows the solar cycle. It marks the transition when the sun moves from one zodiac sign to another, symbolizing a fresh beginning. But beyond all that history and the background, for us it's something much more personal. It's about going back to our roots, slowing down, and spend time with our family. It's all about those simple moments like sitting together, laughing, sharing stories, and of course, enjoying all the traditional food that we grew up loving. There's something really special about those familiar tastes. The sweets, the milk rice, and all the homemade dishes, they instantly take you back into your childhood. No matter how busy our life gets, April always gives us a reason to pause and reconnect with our culture, our traditions, and most importantly, with the people who we really love. While some people choose to slow down and spend the holidays doing what they love, others head straight into the rush, shopping new clothes, groceries, and everything they need to get ready for the new year. If you ever have been out during these times, you know exactly how it feels. Crowded streets, packed stores, and long queues everywhere. Honestly, it gets a little chaotic, a little overwhelming, but at the same time, there's this unique festive energy you really can't explain. It's all part of the Aurudhu experience. For us, Aurudhu has always been about making little more than usual, especially when it comes to sweets and sharing them with the people around us. Families, friends, and neighbors. It's that time of the year where you give a little extra and connect little more. This year though has been a little challenging. Fuel prices have gone up, there has been limited access to LPG for households, and the cost of pretty much everything has increased due to the global situation. And honestly, things feels a bit tighter than the usual. But the people here in Sri Lanka, we know how to celebrate even with very little. Because at the end of the day, it's not really about how much you have, it's all about making the most out of what you have and spending that time with the people you love. So this year, we decided to keep things simple and make a few homemade items for our New Year table. And the first thing we are starting with for this New Year would be traditional sesame balls, our very own Sri Lankan version. And the best part about this sweet, it's incredibly simple to make. You only need 2 or 3 ingredients for this one: sesame seeds, jaggery, and a bit of treacle. We had already cleaned the sesame seeds earlier, rinsed them well, and sun-dried them about for 2 days. That step really helped us with getting the right texture and removing any moisture within the sesame seeds. Next, we lightly roasted the sesame seeds until they turned a nice golden brown. Since we are running a bit low on LPG these days, we are using a hot plate for most of the cooking. So we just used the skillet and started roasting the sesame seeds slowly. The key here is constant stirring. If you leave them unattended even for a bit, they can burn pretty quickly. That steady stirring is a small trick, but it makes a big difference in getting that perfect, even roast. Once the sesame seeds are nicely roasted, we transfer them into a bowl and let them cool down. Then comes the jaggery. You literally can use any type of jaggery, but this time we went with sugarcane jaggery. These comes in little cubes and they are easy to manage. we cut them into smaller pieces so it's easier to blend later on. Now, this part really depends on the texture of your jaggery. Some jaggery are soft and melt quickly, while others are harder and bit tricky to cut. Usually with our experience, the ones that melt faster tend to be better quality with less or without any added sugar. So choosing a good jaggery actually makes a big difference in the final taste. As we are done cutting the jaggery into smaller pieces, we move on to grinding the sesame seeds. Here's something important that you should keep in mind. You really don't want to turn them into fine powder. Just a light grind is enough to break the seeds down a bit and release their natural goodness. And that's what gives these sesame balls that rich flavor and slightly crumbly texture. So yeah, not too chunky and definitely not too fine. Just the right. Since our food processor is a bit on the smaller side, we decided to do this in 2 batches. While it's running, you can actually keep an eye on the texture and stop at the right moment. And that's the good thing. You're in control, so you can make sure it doesn't get overgrind. Once the first batch was done, we transferred it into a pan. And honestly, the smell at this point was just amazing. You get that warm, nutty aroma from the sesame, and you already know that this is gonna taste really good. After that, we moved on to the second batch. This time, we let it run just a little longer. And then added in the jaggery along with a pinch of sea salt. That helps everything blend together nicely and bring out the sweetness even more. Once we were able to grind the jaggery with the sesame, we combined it with the first batch and mixed everything really well to make sure the texture and the sweetness are even throughout. After mixing the 2 batches very well, Gims made a small sesame ball just to check the consistency. If it turns into a nice ball, we are good. But if it starts breaking into pieces, the mixture isn't ready. And this looked like it needed a little more binding. So we added a bit of treacle, mixed it again, and that did the trick. The texture was perfect after that. And then it was time to shape them. This one was a really satisfying thing to do. I also jumped in to help a bit here, rolling them into nice, even balls. Nothing fancy, just simple and homemade sesame balls. And this is how they turned out at the end. Simple, traditional, and honestly, they smelled so good and natural with the fresh sesame seeds that we had purchased earlier from a local vendor. It smelled absolutely amazing, and it was one of those moments where you just want to start eating right away. But good things will have to wait. So we took a short break, reset a bit, and then jumped back into making the next sweet. This one is called Halapa. It's a traditional Sri Lankan sweet made with foxtail millet flour, also known as Kurakan flour, and caramelized coconut. And honestly, it's one of those underrated favorites. One thing I really love about Sri Lankan food is that almost every traditional dish has its own variations depending on the region where you are from the island. Different ingredients, slightly different techniques, and everyone swears their version is the best. So this year, we thought why not try two versions. Basically, we are making Halapa the way it's done in two different parts of the island. To start off, we need a couple of fresh coconuts. After opening two coconuts, we collected the coconut water to drink later on. Then, we will have to scrape the coconuts. For this, we are using a traditional tool called Hiramanaya. It's designed to scrape coconuts finely, and this one does a great job. This part isn't exactly fun. It takes a bit of effort and patience, but it's one of those things you just have to get through. Once the coconut was ready, Gims moved on to making the caramel. She heated up the pan and started melting brown sugar. This step is actually pretty important. You will have to control the heat very carefully. If you burn the caramel even slightly, it can turn bitter and affect the end result. So it's all about patience here. Stir in gently, keeping an eye on it, and make sure it melts into the perfect golden, glossy texture without crossing the line. As everything slowly melted together, she poured in a little hot water to loosen it up and get that smooth, syrup-like texture. Once the sugar started melting and forming those little bubbles, she added a bit more brown sugar into the pan to build up the rich caramel base. Then came one of my favorite parts. She added a couple of cardamom pods into the pan. That instantly lifted the aroma. If you have grown up around Sri Lankan sweets, you know how important cardamom is. It gives that warm, natural fragrance that makes everything feel more authentic. After that, she added the freshly scraped coconut and mixed everything together over the heat. At this stage, you have to be a bit careful not to burn the mixture. It needs to cook just enough for everything to combine nicely without drying out or without burning at the bottom. After prepping the caramelized coconut, we moved on to the fun part, the dough. We started with the foxtail millet flour as the base. Since we are making a slightly bigger batch this time to share with our friends, we used 2 packets. To make the dough softer and easier to work with, we added a bit of wheat flour as well. That really helps to balance out the natural heaviness of the foxtail millet. Then, Gims added a pinch of sea salt, just enough to enhance the flavor, and gave everything a really good mix. Since we are doing 2 different versions, we kept half of the dry mixture aside for later. For the first batch, we slowly started adding hot water little by little, mixing as we go. This part really needs patience. You really can't rush this process by pouring all the water at once. You have to gradually bring it together, mixing it properly each time until you get that smooth, soft dough. It takes a bit of time, but honestly, there's no shortcut here. Getting the consistency right is what makes all the difference in the final result. So now we got both components ready, the dough and the caramelized coconut filling, and this is where everything comes together. For wrapping, we are using candle leaves, which is the traditional way of making halapa. We had already washed and cleaned the leaves earlier, but there was still a bit of moisture on them. So we gently dried them using a paper towel. Then we applied a very thin layer of coconut oil on the leaves. This step helps prevent the dough from sticking to the leaves and also makes it easier to remove once it's steamed. As the next step, we took a small portion of the dough, rolled it into a ball and flattened it onto the leaf, spreading it nice and thin, but also not too thin that it breaks. And then, right in the middle, we added a bit of that coconut caramel filling. Then we folded the dough over, almost like making a little sandwich, and carefully sealed the edges. Sealing the edges is actually pretty important here. If the edges aren't closed properly, the filling can leak out while steaming and you could lose all that flavor. And then we just repeated the same process until we used up all the dough. While we were doing all this, we had the steamer heating up in the background, getting it ready at the same time. Once it reached the right temperature and started making the steam, we placed the halapa inside to steam. One small thing to keep in mind, you don't want to block all the holes at the bottom of the steamer. Leaving some holes open helps the steam to circulate properly and cook everything evenly. While the first batch was steaming away, we moved on to the second version. For this one, we took the remaining flour mixture we kept aside and added the coconut caramel directly into it. Then we mixed it well until everything was evenly combined. And after that, we slowly added warm water and mixed it using a spatula until we got a smooth, workable consistency. This one is pretty simple to the first dough but already infused with the filling. So the main difference here is simple. Instead of adding the filling in the middle, we are mixing it straight into the dough. Then just like before, we took a portion of the mixture and spread it onto the candle leaf. But this time only on one side since there's no folding involved. And that's how we prepare the second batch. Same ingredients, same base, but a completely different style. While we were working on the second batch, we kept checking on the steamer to make sure everything was cooking just right. One simple way to tell when halapa is done is by looking at the leaves. When they are fresh, they are bright green, but as they steam, they slowly turn into a darker brownish green color. That's when you know they are ready. Once they were done, we used tongs to carefully take them out and place them on a plate. You have to be a bit gentle here since they are still soft and hot. We wrapped a few in aluminium foil to send to some of our friends. It's actually a husband and wife, and the fun part is they both prefer different styles of halapa because they are from two different regions in the island. So of course we label them just to make sure that there's no mix-up. After all the sweets, it was time to move on to something savory. Next up is a dish that Gims absolutely loves, Maalu Ambulthiyal, also known as sour fish. We are using fresh tuna for this, already cleaned and ready to go. But this is not your typical fish curry. This one has its own unique method and flavor. Apart from the fish, the key ingredient here is goroka, also known as Malabar tamarind. That's what gives this dish its signature sour taste. This time we are using it in a paste form along with some sea salt, turmeric and a piece of Ceylon cinnamon. And just like everything else today, we are doing this the traditional way. For this curry, a clay pot works the best. It really helps to bring out the flavor and gives that authentic finish as clay pots tend to hold the heat for longer and distribute the heat evenly throughout. To start, we layer the bottom of the pot with a generous layer of curry leaves. This actually serves two purposes. First, it prevents the fish from sticking or burning at the bottom. And second, it's added a deep aromatic flavor as it cooks. Since the fish sits on top of this layer, it almost cooks in a gentle, steamed environment, absorbing all those flavors. And to take it one step further, we also added a few pandan leaves. That helps mellow out the strong fishy smell and adds a really nice fragrance to the dish. So yeah, lots of layers, lots of flavors, and we are just getting started. And this is how it looks after layering the curry leaves and pandan leaves at the bottom. Simple, but it sets the base for all the flavor. Now come the fun part, making the paste. I'm using our skillet for this one. First, I added some sea salt, then broke a piece of Ceylon cinnamon into smaller bits and set that aside in the pot. After that, I added turmeric into the pan, followed by a good amount of gorica paste. Then I gave everything a proper mix. To loosen it up a bit, I added some warm water and mixed it until it turned into a smooth, slightly thick paste. I personally like using my hands for this with a glove on because it helps me to mix everything really well. But you can easily use a spoon or a fork if you prefer. Next, we are going to coat the fish with this paste. For those who might not know, the signature sour taste in the dish comes from gorica. It's actually a fruit kind of like mangosteen when it's young, and once it's processed, it gives this deep, rich sour flavor that's very unique to Sri Lankan cooking. The key here is to make sure each piece of fish is evenly coated, not too thick but enough to cover it well. Honestly, this step takes a little bit of time, but it's worth doing properly because that's what brings all the flavor into the fish. Once all the pieces are nicely coated with the gorica paste, we place them into the clay pot. You can add a little bit of water at this stage, but just a little. This dish is meant to be quite dry with only a small amount of thick gravy at the bottom. If you add too much water, it will turn into a regular curry and lose all that signature taste. And once everything is set, we place the clay pot on the stove to start cooking. After a while, it's important to reduce the heat to the lowest possible level. This dish is all about slow cooking, letting it simmer gently over the time. Traditionally, this is best done on a firewood stove, which gives it an even deeper flavor. But since we don't have that setup here, we are using a gas burner and keeping the heat as low and steady as possible. From here on, it's just patience, letting the time to do its thing. When it comes to cooking this dish, heat control is everything. The goal here is to cook it slowly on the lowest heat possible for a longer period of time. So what I'm doing is letting it simmer gently, even turning the heat on and off occasionally to keep it from getting too hot. This slow process really helps the fish to absorb all those deep flavors and give it that authentic taste. And just like that, the New Year day arrives. This day is considered the official beginning of the new year, and everything is done according to specific auspicious times, what we call Nakat in Sinhala. From early morning, you can hear firecrackers going off all around the neighborhood, marking those important milestones. It's not really our thing, but it's been a long-standing tradition and it definitely adds to the atmosphere. One of the key rituals is starting the fire in the kitchen. Traditionally, fresh milk is boiled until it overflows. This is called Kiri Tiruvima. It symbolizes prosperity and growth for the year ahead. But this time, we decided to keep things simple and go straight into making one of the most iconic New Year dishes, Kiribat or milk rice. So I started prepping the rice. We'll have to rinse the rice 3 or 4 times to clean it properly. And this year, we are adding mung beans also to the milk rice. It really gives a really special texture and flavor. We had already soaked the mung beans overnight and in the morning gave them a good rinse. Then into the pot along with water, getting everything ready for cooking. When the right time arrives, we placed it on the stove and let it cook slowly. This is not something you want to rush. A good milk rice always takes its time. While that's getting ready, I moved on to making lunumiris, a spicy onion sambal that goes perfectly with the milk rice. But before that, let me show you how the sour fish turned out from the last night, and honestly, it came out really well. This is actually my first time making it, but I have watched my mom making it so many times growing up that the whole process just kinda stayed in my head. It's really funny how actually that works. You really don't realize you have learned it until you're actually trying it. Alright, next up, lunamiris. We start with a couple of onions finely chopped like this. And for the rest, here we go. While working on our lunamiris, I didn't forget about the milk rice. And I gave it a good stir just to make sure that everything is cooking evenly. I added a few pandan leaves as well. That aroma from the pandan leaves instantly take it to another level. So back to the lunamiris again. We are using a pestle and a mortar to get this done the traditional way. I added some chili flakes, a bit of umbalakada, that small deep fish, along with some fresh chilies and salt. Then I started mixing it all together. After that, I added the chopped onions little by little and pounded everything properly. This part does take a bit of time, but it's important to really work it through so all the flavors combine nicely. Once it reached that perfect texture, I transferred it into a bowl. Then I added some lime juice. Usually the juice from 1 or 2 limes would be enough depending on your taste. But for us, that extra tang really brings everything together. I gave it one final mix, and with that, the lunamiris is done. By the time I finished that, the milk rice was ready for the next step. I added 2 glasses of coconut milk and gave it a really good mix, letting it slowly cook and absorb all that richness. At this point, it's just about patience. We are almost there and the milk rice will be ready within just another 15 to 30 minutes. And honestly, milk rice is one of those things you should never rush. Slow cooking always gives the best results. And that's exactly what we are going for. And after a while, the milk rice was finally ready. So I started transferring it onto a plate, gently shaping it using a spatula while it was still warm. There's something really satisfying about this part, getting it nice and neat before it sets. Since we were planning to share some with a close friend, I also packed a portion into a foil container so it's easy to carry. And honestly, just from the smell alone, I could tell it turned out perfectly. Then, Gims took over to set up the New Year table. We started with the sesame balls we made the day before. The moment we opened the container, the aroma just took us to a different world. Rich, nutty, and so fresh. It's one of those things you just can't get that same feeling from store-bought sweets. Everything homemade always hits different. Then come the rest of the classics. Here comes the cookies, a must-have on any Aurudhu table. Then comes the konda kavum, another traditional favorite. And here comes asmi, with its unique texture and sweetness. And of course, butter cake, something we never skip. Once that was done, Gims moved on to arranging the cooler, the traditional tray with another selection of sweets. We added the halapa that we made the other day along with some rulang toffee, Ambulthiyal, also known as panivalulu, and moonkawung. Everything slowly started coming together. Then comes the Maalu Ambulthiyal, and I was honestly so happy to see how it turned out. For the first attempt, it couldn't have gone better. Finally, Gims added the final touches. She arranged the oil lamp on the table with some flowers. This is something she genuinely enjoys doing every year. It's small detail, but it adds so much warmth and meaning to the whole setup. And just like that, the table looked complete. And with the milk rice finally joining the table, our Aurudhu table was complete. We lit the oil lamp as a small meaningful gesture to welcome the new year with light, positivity, and the hope that everything ahead turns out for the best. Then it was time to enjoy everything we had prepared. As always, we started with the milk rice. There's just something about the first bite, it never gets old. And honestly, we were really happy this year, especially because we were managed to make quite a few things at home compared to the last year. And everything turned out really well. After enjoying our meal, we packed a few plates to share with our neighbors and a close friend. This is something we have been doing since we were kids, and it's one of those traditions I personally love. You get to share what you made, and in return, you receive different plates from others. And the best part is, every house has its own style, its own flavors. So you end up tasting a little bit of everything and it never gets boring. These are a couple of plates that we received for this new year. As you can see, they are slightly different. Gims and I just sat down, nibbled through them and really enjoyed what our neighbors had prepared. Later in the afternoon, we stepped into the garden to continue another little tradition, which is planting something new. But before that, I got a bit distracted by this tiny plant that closes their leaves when you touch them. I used to love these as a kid, and honestly, nothing has changed. A few days earlier, we had brought some brinjal plants, planning to plant them during the new year. So we prepared a couple of grow bags with soil and compost and planted them. We are actually trying to build a small habit by planting at least 10 vegetable plants every month. The idea is to slowly become more self-sustainable and have access to our own fresh food. And just like that, the day went by. We genuinely enjoyed every single moment of this New Year day. Later in the evening, we lit some fireworks which are called Nilakuru, something we used to absolutely love as kids, and for a moment it really felt like we are kids again. And we made so many memories over these couple of days, the kind that stays with you for a lifetime. And if you have made this far, thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate it, and we will see you in the next one.